Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
There is a lot of talk out there about truck guns, backpack guns, SBRs, AR pistols, and similar setups in various calibers, and everyone seems to have their personal preference, which is fine because you run what you like. But one thing that is true is that all of us want something that we know is going to perform, doesn't weigh 64 pounds, and is a size that we can all live with and run around with and have fun on the weekends with the boys in a 5.56 rig. And while I love various lengths, 10.5 to 18 for precision work, on the day-to-day, I like to have something that I know I can crush targets out to 300, 400, and maybe beyond, that is light, well-equipped, easy to move with, and just fun. Because let's just face it, besides a PRS match or a hunt, most of us that are not in the military or law enforcement are never going to be breaking out our SPR or our DMR to take that one beautiful shot to save the day. However, every once in a while, a package just comes together that just seems to feel different, run different, and give you that extreme sense of confidence in that rifle. And that is what I want to share with you today. All right, I know the argument's already started in the comments down below between lengths when it comes to your go-to AR, right? But I think over the past several decades, we've all seen rifles go from 20-inch to 10.5 to 14.5, 13.9, and everything in between. And I love them all, right? For a specific reason, for a specific season, right? About 6 months ago, I started putting a lot of thought into a package that I could put together that would just be an absolute performer, but was also going to last an extremely long time. And one of the key things I wanted to stick to was no upgrades. It had to be performance driven and quality right out of the box. And I wanted to keep it to a fairly small package, not that like crazy 6.5, 7.5 PDW package, but something less than the 16. And I took my time on this one. I borrowed some rigs from my buddies. Of course, I tested everything that I have here that you've seen on the channel. There's a plethora of different rifle lengths that I've either owned, built, or borrowed over the past several years on the channel here, but trying different configurations as well. Maybe my friend's was set up a little different, a little bit of a longer barrel, maybe another friend that had something a little shorter with a lot more stuff on it. But ultimately what I really decided was I wanted something that was either an 11.5 or a 12.5. And what I ultimately settled on for the upper was this 12.5 right here from Geisley in their Super Duty line, which Brownells was nice enough to send into the channel to help with this review. You guys know I love the Brownells people, and I still have my parting gift from the Ultimate Recce rifle build that we did for SHOT Show in 25, which is this right here, as you can see, that is the key to Caleb's heart. A little bit of a joke they played on me when that rifle came in. Now, before we get into all of the parts and pieces on here that just kind of made it that secret sauce, we have to discuss the performance of this thing. And then I think when we talk about the parts, you'll see why it all just seemed to come together. And then you'll probably come to understand why I just wanted to run this thing more and more. We do have to give a little bit of attention to the sponsors, which is obviously going to be Brownells for sending the upper. Shellshock protection, they're the ear and eye protection I've been wearing out there on the range. They got ballistic rated eye pro that's good looking enough to wear out on the town, out on the range. Great hearing protection with gel inserts so you get a good seal. And my guys over at HRT Tactical making those soft goods in the way of plate carriers, belts, all that stuff for your hard LARP lifestyle out there. And HRT is just great stuff that I have used for the past few years, both personally and professionally. And if you guys are interested in anything else you see here today or the parts I'm talking about or anything, I'll have a build list linked down below. You can do all of your own research on everything we talk about here today. And for those of you brave souls that are watching this in your employer's break room, casting it to the TV from your device while enjoying a delicious Reuben sandwich, I'll put the QR code right up here for you. Now that range performance. So obviously by that first scene in the video, you could tell instantly I was impressed with this rifle, especially how it ran with that Hux Flow 5.56 can. Now, that is a high flow can. It's very well proven. A lot of units and law enforcement are carrying that can or a version of a can like that. they're just pretty awesome. But this thing just seemed to be that secret sauce from the first pull of the trigger to the absolute last for all the days that I was filming the video. The mix of all of these parts just came together and made all of the difference. Now, having just over 2,000 rounds through this thing, both suppressed and unsuppressed in a mix, I was equally impressed with how this thing ran, felt, recoiled, and just overall maneuverability of it, whether it was suppressed or unsuppressed. Being a taller guy with longer arms, the 12.5 configuration just seemed to be a fit for me, especially for how this thing is currently outfitted, which still gives me space to add things like a PEC 15 or a D-ball to have some fun at night when I'm out there with the boys. It is just absolutely fast as well. With that Geisley SSP trigger in there, which is a component design or a mil-spec style trigger, it is just the best style trigger out there like that. The recoil was just extremely easy to control, and I was flat out impressed with how this thing ran with that Hux flow can. It almost seemed to just get better. The ejection pattern on it was perfect with or without the can. It didn't make a change at all, which is good because it's a flow through can. You're getting less gas, less carcinogens, and less blowback, all that stuff in your face. And it's not destroying those gas rings and small parts in there with all of that additional pressure since it's a flow design. That Geisley rail is large enough to run it hard without getting too hot on the hand, but it's also slim enough to where you don't feel like you've got a 5-inch pipe out on the end of your rig. Hands down, I wanted to just keep running and running this rifle. It just put a smile on my face, and it got me a bit more excited than I normally get when I'm running just another AR. And by the end of the filming and shooting, I just couldn't think of anything on this rifle that I would change from how it sits right now currently. However, I think I'm gonna add an end gall or something like that on this just so I can use it at night as well, because I just dig it. The performance on this thing and how it ran out there for me is just top notch right now. I will do some accuracy testing in the future, but realistically, this is how we're probably gonna run something in the 12.5. Could I add a magnifier? Could I try an LPVO? Yes. But I know those Geisley barrels are extremely accurate. So what is this blend of parts that just seem to come together? Starting off with that upper, that is the 12.5 Geisley Super Duty upper. They flat out make great stuff. Their barrels have proven to be very accurate. They're chrome lined, cold hammer forged, so they're gonna last an extremely long time. The bolt and carry groups, hands down some of the best in the industry. Recently, when I was at the School of the American Rifle taking his armorer's course, we had a Geisley that was a rental gun there that had approximately 100,000 rounds on it, and it was still going. All it needed was like the springs for the ejector, extractor, and the gas key to be resealed on there, and the thing was still running. Granted, the barrel was toast, but only in like the first couple inches where you had the fire cracking, and then after that, even at the end where the crown is, there was no damage to it. The gas port was completely eroded, but at that amount of rounds, that's just insane. I don't think any of us have rifles with that style of rounds on it. The rails are also covered with 7 sides of M-LOK for every tactical attachment your heart could desire. It's anti-rotation fit directly into the upper. And overall, these are just some of my favorite rails and uppers. It's got steel QD inserts, unlike many others that just put a hole in the aluminum, which eventually get destroyed by your steel QD point for your sling. The bolt and carry groups are high pressure tested, magnetic particle inspected, nano coated, and that bolt is made in some crazy forged process with a tool steel cam pin. And overall, these things are gonna last tens of thousands of rounds with just gas rings and spring replacements, which are consumables. The upper is forged, and they come with an airborne ambi charging handle as a package. For the muzzle device on these things, it has the Huxworks Flash Hider QD for their flow cans. And for the lower, I used my SBR Aero Pro. I'm a big fan of these lowers because they're fully ambi, they're forged, they have an integral trigger guard, a flared magwell, and obviously the rest of the small parts are standard to the AR. I put a Geisley enhanced buffer tube with their Super 42 and H1 spring setup in there. The stock is the MOE SLS from Magpul. I've got a few of these, and I really like the way they interface, fit, and feel on the rifle. I chose the Geisley enhanced pins to go in there because they're nice and I just like them. The Geisley SSP trigger, which is hands down one of my all-time favorites. I chose the Radiance selector as well because it's just my go-to and my favorite one out there in the industry. For the grip, I went with the Die-Free Co. Kung Fu grip with that bottom plug in it. I really like these a lot, very neutral angle, and that finger groove just seems to fit right here on my hand. So when it comes to mounting your rifle, right, the more aggressive that grip is angled back, the more like pressure it's putting on your wrist. If you think about mounting this rifle, if your wrist is way back like that, it's just not comfortable. So you want that nice kind of more 90-ish degree grip. And that's what most of us that use kind of like a modern shooting stance are gonna go for. Out on the rail, we have the Walker Defense Research silicone carbide covers, which I use these things a lot, and I do have some ways over at the parts list that could save you some galactic credits on these. The dye-free code Tiger Claw is an index point on the bottom of that rail, and a Cloud Rain micro light with pressure pad. Up top, you'll see an Aimpoint Comp M5 on a Unity fast mount, which gives me the height I want, and it also has integrated iron sights that will work in a pinch should your optic ever go down. Now, I ran that Hux Flow 556, obviously, as you can see in the video, and that thing performs very well, especially for a low back pressure can that has good sound. And when I wasn't running the can, I did run the Hux Blast Shield a little bit on there, because sometimes when you're filming with the camera, a little bit of that concussion will make the sensor shake. But honestly, that Hux flash hider muzzle device outdoors, you're not gonna have any problems at all unless you have a camera really close to it that's going to eat the concussion. But why do I think that this is not only the length, but also the mix of hard parts for probably 95% of us out there that are looking for a rifle like this? Many of you here have probably seen all of the different barrel length and ballistics gel testing that has been done when it comes to AR barrel lengths, right? Everything from 10.5 up to 20 inch. And I think one thing that is proven consistent is that 11.5 or 12.5 seems to be a really great mix of not only maintaining ballistics and accuracy, but weight savings and length savings as an overall package when compared to some of its peers like 10.5, 14.5, 16, stuff like that. You got to think, every inch of that rifle you chop down, you're losing a little bit of velocity, but you're losing a pretty good amount of weight. But if you get to a certain point, you're giving too much and not gaining enough on weight savings, if that makes sense to you. So 11.5 or 12.5 just seems to be a real sweet spot and happy median for the ballistics, accuracy, and of course, maneuverability. A 12.5, especially with a suppressor, is super easy to carry around, even for longer periods of time, as when compared to its longer peers. While it's not backpack PDW short, I really don't care about having something that short, because if I'm walking around out there in the world on the day-to-day and I'm at the coffee shop and something goes down right then and there at that moment that I can't handle with my pistol, I've probably made a series of bad decisions to be in that environment. So if I needed something like a PDW over my rifle right then and there, it's probably something that I should have planned for. And the performance and the reliability of this thing, at least so far, a little over 2,000 rounds, is exceptional in my eyes. I shoot a lot of rifle. I shoot tens of thousands of rounds a year, and not a lot of things put a smile on my face, and this one just does. Add that to the fact that 99% of people are probably never going to wear out a hard part on this rifle. So the consumable stuff like, gas rings, some small springs at 5, 10, 15,000 rounds, sure. But when it comes to the barrel, the bolt, the hard parts in here, right? Most people are never going to have to cycle those out with this mix. And I know the comments are probably already going off about bougie parts and expensive rifles. Yes, that's true. Nothing on this setup right here is cheap. But I wasn't trying to build a budget weekender here. I was trying to build an absolute monster out of the box that was going to be reliable, durable, and last an extremely long time while giving you the benefits of weight saving, maneuverability, and maximizing the package. And for me personally, this is something that I feel comfortable with going 10,000, 15, 20,000 plus rounds, because these parts were picked for specific reasons and have been tested and proofed time and time again, not only by me, but by hundreds of people out there. A lot of these parts are in use around agencies all over the place, and they can be counted on time and time again. And when it comes to the length of 12.5, after training with my buddy Adrian over at Sidewinder Concepts and going to a few of his classes and seeing a lot of other people bring all kinds of different lengths there, no doubt in my mind, we put a 3 to 18 or something like that on this, and we'll be smashing targets at 500, 600, well beyond max effective range of 5.56, out to 1,000 repeatedly. I would watch people show up to classes with 10.5s, 11.5s, 12.5s, 13.9s, 14.5s, crushing targets at those distances, all the way out to a grand repeatedly. Now, that's the fun zone, right? Because at that point, we're past max effective for energy delivery. But who doesn't want to shoot their 11.5 or 12.5 out to 1,000 and hear that steel ring out through the valley just a few times? Now, pretty much all of you here know I don't cuss much, but I absolutely fucking love this thing, right? Everything just seemed to come together, work perfectly. The fit, the feel, the function, the confidence level this thing gave me out there from the first pull of the trigger, suppressed, unsuppressed. It just had that secret sauce that put a smile on my face, which doesn't happen a lot anymore. And every time I look at this thing, I just want to run it again and again, to the point where before I even did the video, I got 2,000 rounds deep in it because that's how much fun I was having with it. And I hands down wouldn't change a thing on it from how it sits today, except for maybe adding an end gall or some kind of night vision device on it, right? And for those of you out there that want to do something like this, but want to save a serious amount of coin, I've got a bunch of options for you that we're going to go through right now, and all of this will be at the parts list. You don't have to do everything exactly like I did. Here are the ways to save some serious coin. Get the cheapest, most budget-friendly in-spec lower you can absolutely find, and you're gonna absolutely save probably 200 to 300 right there. Because not everybody wants or needs a fully ambidextrous lower like I have here with that Aero Pro. Out on the back end, get a house-branded buffer tube spring and an H buffer from like Brownells or something. That's gonna be like 50 bucks worth of savings right there. Furniture, that's completely up to you. You can probably spend a little bit less on that as well. Up top, you can run a different optic on here. You don't have to have an M5. You can get a Pro, you can get the RDS, you can get any other number of good proven optics out there, some of the Vortex Spark Solar stuff. There's a ton of options that come with integrated mounts. You don't have to get a really expensive mount like that to get everything done. That's like a $300 savings right there. And then out on the front, you don't need to get that Cloud Defensive Rain Micro. I just like it, but I run a lot of the Streamlight ProTac HLX stuff, ran them on my duty rifles, I run them on a ton of my personal rifles. They've never failed me. That's gonna save you like 2 to 3 hundo. So if you do even just a couple of these different savings, you're gonna be like 6 hundo off what something like this would cost out of the box, which is pretty expensive. This thing, the way it is set up, is well over $3,500. And that's with the optic and everything included, but you could have a ton of savings if you do those simple steps that I just mentioned. The one thing I will say is splurge on that Geisley SSP trigger. And if you don't want like a mil-spec style trigger, you want to drop in cassette, Blackout Defense, hands down. Those are the two that I go to time and time again. So is it that ultimate mix, right? For the truck gun, the car gun, the backpack gun, whatever, you know, the AR SBR, the pistol, if you want to build it that way, because that is an option as well. When I think about it and it comes down to the parts in here and how this thing ran, this is the ultimate mix for me. I picked everything for a reason, like I said, proven, reliable, durable, and the thing just smashes out there on the range. And I don't think there's any part on here that anybody could say with a straight face is like trash or garbage. You may disagree with what I chose, but everything here is pretty well proven and pretty high quality. But let me know in the comments down below where I went wrong on this thing or what you would have done instead. Make sure you get subbed up to the channel. That parts list is linked down below. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.